So, hello and welcome to Some Boy Online. Today we are at the Harris Museum in Preston
For the grand opening.
with a massive Wallace and Gromit exhibition. So let's go in and see what it's all about. This is the most incredible kind of immersive Wallace and Gromit experience I think there's ever been. Here we have the road sign for West Wallaby Street. We've got a bit of a map here of the Harris. So we're going to go through and have a bit of a walk through today so all of you at home can see the exhibition. So the first thing we'll have here, the Meterbix box that Gromit hides in. And this is actually kind of interactive, as you can go inside of it. I don't know how on earth that looks. Oh, I can see feathers looking at us as well. So yeah, when you're in the box, you can see Feathers McGraw just like in the film, which is awesome. So, Gromit's room, which is, it has Nick's room written on it, based around Nick Park's, room and original ideas when he conceptualised Wallace and Gromit. We've got some quotes here on the wall. It's about, his early life in Preston, which is where we are. And he mentions here about his dad telling him how to do animation for the first time and being inspired to do all of it, Original concept art for Wallace and Gromit. Look at this, old Wallace. And there's some orange paint up there on the wall with some ladders that look exactly like the ones that Wallace kind of goes and flies up. They're protected here so you can't climb them. And then we've got the wall painted oranga here with all of the different facial expressions, as he speaks, all the vowels.
That's it, cheese. We'll go somewhere where there's cheese.
These are massive. I didn't realise how big these were. This is Captain Cuddlepuss and Trixie from Creature Comforts. Yeah, but different scale to Wallace and Gromit. I thought they were all the same scale, but apparently not.
It is very self-righteous, actually.
No.
You
no,
are.
I'm not
You always
having
think
that.
you're right.
No,
I like to get the last word.
No, that's not right.
Some of the coolest parts, I think, are in this centre bit. As was mentioned with Nick when we actually got there to talk to him, this is the original rocket from A Grand Day Out. Many thought that it was lost to the Aardman fire back in 2005, but here it is. And we got to speak to Nick about what it was made of and everything. And it's really made of quite feeble material. And it's quite primitive because it was one of the earliest stuff that he did. And yet, on screen, it looks like metal. You can actually see through the rocket, and there's literally it looks like a bit of toilet roll kind of supporting it. So it's amazing that we still have that. And here, we have the cougar, the kind of villain from A Grand Day Out. Quite a decent size, I think he is, when you see them up close in person. But I know the cougar's a favourite of many, so there you go. And then this section here, we have some cameras that Nick used, some film reel, and a bit of a Wallace model right here. So what is this? 16mm Bolex camera with Aardman and a motor. I think this room in particular will kind of inspire people, especially young people coming to the exhibition and be like, whoa, he's doing this, but he just kind of started doing stuff like this. So, moving into the next part of the exhibition.
It's the wrong trousers. The wrong trousers.
We spoke about this with Nick, but it's particularly impressive that this survives. It was out on an exhibition, so it's completely intact, maybe a bit restored. So we've got Wallace here hanging upside down, ironically in the museum, which is kind of like Inception because it's in the actual museum in Preston. And you can see here, we've got all of the little kind of details and models, like these little penguins here, that make up the exhibit. It's really massive and really cool to see. So moving around, we've got a bit of a Feathers McGraw display. Here is the original feathers in a bottle from Wrong Trousers. Very antique model. Zoe showed it off from the Aardman archives, alongside a newer feathers with his glove and controller, and your standard non-chicken one from Vengeance Most Foul. You've got all of the storyboards, but over here at the left,
There's something very special I want to show you.
we're kind of merging into a were-rabit exhibit. So here we've got Lady Torrington, which is awesome. Obviously Helena Bonham Carter in the film, and just one of the garden gnomes. We've got early designs of Lady Torrington and some of Hutch here, which is particularly cool. Over here, you might recognise these two planes from the kind of the fight sequence, the dogfight sequence. The original undamaged versions. So we've got Gromit's plane and Philip's plane as well. Obviously the two dogs, the fight in the scene. Continuing on to were-rabit, the titular creature can be found over here. This is probably one of the coolest parts of the exhibition. You get to see the were-rabit as a skeleton, an armature, and this is what most of the models from Wallace and Gromit look like before they have the kind of clay or fur applied. I've never seen, you know, such a thing up close before, so it's really cool to look at and see just all of the detail that goes into it. And because this is the running were-rabit, run rabbit run, it can be stretched out like this to create the various frames of the rabbit kind of run. Here we can see they've added like muscle, so that when the fur is placed on, it actually all looks like there are muscles and stuff, and it's moving correctly, which is really cool. And the full furry were-rabit is down at the bottom here, and 20 years old these are now, and they're looking good for it, you know. Moving on from the were-rabit, we have this really cool looking set piece, which is just really surreal to see in person. Just a highlight of the were-rabit film, and something that just seems so familiar. And here it is, you know, that lovely scene where Gromit is tending to the to his marrow. From the soil in the bottom to the cabbages and just all the vegetables, the greenhouse. Such a lovely scene, and you can just kind of imagine it playing out right there. It's been just perfectly preserved, which is great to see. And similarly, if we come over here, we've got this even bigger set piece. So of course, Wallace and Gromit's iconic basement, which first debuted in A Grand Day Out, and it's various versions of it been in all the films. But this is just such an iconic scene, where Wallace essentially turns himself into the were-rabit by kind of fusing with one of these lovely rabbits here.
Another 30 minutes brainwashing should suffice, and then we can move on to the conditioning.
All of the models look incredible. I've never seen the bunny rabbits in real life. They look so cool. Just seeing the scale of them. And you've got the, you know, the stairs leading up the side and everything. It's kind of vast down here. And look at all the hutches with all the little rabbits in them as well. It's so surreal to be so familiar with the film, and then suddenly you're met with, like, this is the film. It hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. So, yeah, we've got a few more set pieces around here. These are various bits of vegetables and stuff, including an anti-pesto trap from the film. Another really cool bit is this machine.
The Bunvac 6000!
You can see that it's got some light running through it, some wires and stuff like that. And just to imagine, yeah, all the bunnies and that floating around in there. So cool. Privileged to be next to this stuff. And we are now moving on to Matter of Life and Death. Here we've got Wallace's bed from the film, which has the Bakelite pillow and all of that theming, which is awesome. Little bits of crackers and cups of tea and stuff, and a smug fridge here. All props from Wallace and Gromit's house in the film. And down here, I'm sure everyone will be happy to see that Fluffles lives. So this is the original Fluffles model from Matter of Life and Death. Similar to the were-rabit, the kind of fluffy fur elements are really cool to see.
We're so grateful, aren't we, Fluffles? Fluffles!
Oh, it was nothing. Oh, what a lovely little doggy.
I think we'll come around here. We have the Top Bun van. It's the same van as the anti-pesto one, but in Life and Death, they redesigned it with the Top Bun branding, which is awesome.
And they called it Puppy Love.
So we've got a couple more bits over here. Again, in keeping with Life and Death, a baker's hat from the film, and loads of bits of breads and pastries and all those little props that you wouldn't really think of that made up the film. I love this bomb, the iconic bomb from the final sequence.
Gromit, it's a bomb! The cake's a bomb!
And there's an antique chair from Paella's place. Lovely to see these storyboards. Again, there's you've got Gromit and Fluffles there. And it's lovely to see the alternate scenes, how the scenes might have been, and then comparing them to how they actually turned out. So, yeah, matter of life and death. All the way back in 2008. And the final bit is this massive, really impressive clock tower.
Curse that balloon. And curse that prevailing southwesterly. They'll be there in no time.
It's one of the kind of background set pieces, and what I love about this is how you can see how it was made. They haven't hidden that. On the contrary, they've kind of emphasised it so that people can come and see, you know, like, this looks like real stone, and yet it isn't, you know. As we move along here, we've got some earlier, more familiar models, like Preston here, ironically, as we are in Preston. So Preston is a fast cast resin puppet, so I don't think the original survived, but that's exactly what he would have looked like. And equally, the original Shaun the Sheep puppet from A Close Shave would have been in the fire as well. So this is the version from the series, you know, starting in 2007, and it goes on to this day. And yeah, here we've got some parts from Wendeleen's wools. I love that little bits survived like this, you know. This is the little bit that is in the kind of shop window of all the balls of wool. The Wendeleen's wool sign. The jigsaw that Gromit completes while he's in prison. And the infamous butcher picture that was used to frame him. Storyboards here, which kind of show the Wallace getting out of bed sequence and how that has evolved. And you've got some lovely reference footage of each film. Here is a centerpiece of, you know, A Close Shave from the film, which is the motorbike and sidecar, which is really awesome, and the original model. This model in particular was infamous for the kind of story when Nick went on a press tour for A Close Shave, and the model was lost in a taxi in New York. So it actually made news headlines, and there was an outcry for, like, someone help find Wallace and Gromit, as if they're the only ones. A taxi driver actually turned them in, and these are the original models. A bit of a detour, we've got the Shaun model there, and we also have the farmer's Land Rover from Shaun the Sheep. This is the only kind of deviation from Wallace and Gromit in the exhibition, on the grassy kind of bottom as well. Each section is denoted with all this lovely artwork and all of that. So the final section. So here is Feather's prison cell. We've got all of the tally marks on the wall, which equally around the wall here in the exhibition. The only difference is in the film, you're going up close on stuff like the newspaper clipping there, you know. Feather's in his little bed. It's all just perfectly made to scale, and it looks so grubby and grimy and all of that. And here is the sub. This is Feathers McGraw's submarine that he uses to escape during the events of the film. What I like about this one is they've got lights coming out of it as well. I believe in the actual film, and it was kind of, there was a mix of CG water elements and stuff like that. So that's what this model would have interacted with. And finally, if we go up to here, you've got the whole shop in the background. But this set is, you know, really summarizes Wallace and Gromit as a whole, I think. And that is just kind of the dining room from Vengeance as well. In the corner, you've got Norbot knitting the Wallace onesie. Gromit stood over there in his dressing gown, which looks awesome. And Wallace reading the newspaper with a Tank Top Man advert in the background there. I love seeing the mugs in this scale, especially from having the real Cornishware mugs and then seeing the actual scale of them. The photographs and everything, the rockets in the background, and all these little details have been just lovingly recreated, all the real stuff. So there is one last thing in the exhibition in the center here, the enormous Accrington Queen, the the massive boat from the climax of Vengeance Most Foul. The detail on this thing is incredible, down to like the little plant pots and the soil and the plants in them and everything. And to imagine it moving and interacting with the water and everything as a model and stuff like that in the film is just incredible when you see the absolute scale of the thing. It's enormous. So yeah, that just about wraps up the exhibition, I think. If you want to come down and visit the Harris, you can. It's open to the public from Sunday, the 28th of September. So you can come and see all this amazing Wallace and Gromit stuff. And yeah, I'm really grateful to the Harris and Aardman for the opportunity. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.